All right, thank you guys all for joining this evening. To start off with apologizing about the little bit of confusion with the Zoom invite last meeting. It's been taken care of and won't be happening again. I guess we can start with approval of the minutes from the last two meetings that we had. Did everybody have a chance to look them over? Debbie had sent them out.
Yep.
A while ago. We'll start with the minutes on from June 25th meeting. Do we want to run through them, or are we all set with people having reviewed them?
I reviewed them.
I reviewed them. Amy, I couldn't understand what you said.
I didn't say anything. I'm fine with, I've reviewed them. I don't have anything.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of June 15th
Second.
as written.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Will? Will? We'll come back to Will. Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. Will, are you all set with those minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the next minutes I have are for meeting on July 15th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 15th as written.
Second.
Okay. Call the vote. Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Debbie?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't actually in attendance at that meeting.
Okay, and I'm a yes. Okay, that'll takes care of those couple minutes. We'll get them posted up on the town website tomorrow now that they're approved, and get them off to the town clerk also. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the budget versus actual, the budget report. Wanted to see how you guys wanted to go through going over it. This is pretty much the year end. I know there's a couple adjustments that still potentially could be made that Kelly had said when she sent it out, that it's not the complete final, but it's pretty much the end of the year.
Mr. Chairman, you skipped
Yes, go ahead.
over one of the agenda items, representative of the capital planning.
Okay, I was going, number 4 was the budget versus annual, and then that came under old business, but we can do that now if you want. Let's finish with the budget versus actual, Will, and then we'll get back to old business on the capital planning.
Okay.
Do we want to go through? I'm not sure how you guys usually go through. Tony, have you guys done it line by line as far as the thing, or do you pretty much just look at the bottom line? What's been I'd like to stay with the same format that we've usually used throughout.
Yeah, we kind of look for outliers. Everybody usually underspends a little bit, but it's those big outliers of maybe someone's 15 or 20% off their budget, and like the explanations.
Okay.
We've done it both ways, Mr. Chairman. Just to.
So kind of like going through, like on the, when you get to senior services, they only end with basically 55%, spending 55%. That's kind of the first one that's out of the 90s going through that I've seen.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
What concerns me the most about this BVA is that we see an account number, COVID-19, with no numbers, number one. Number two, if you look at all the items that were passed at annual town meeting, there is roughly, 250,000 of unspent money going all the way back to, I think it's 2017. And then if you look at a number of items such as debt and also employee benefits, those numbers are in hundreds of thousands. That's that kind of concerns me, that we have that much multiple years that we're seeing. Now, I would think under 5% would be good planning, but that's way above. If you look at some of them, they're as much as 13%, if not more. And the lastly thing is that for BVAs, this is not the end of the year, BVA. We were told some time back, I think it was back in FY16, that the BVA for the end of the year would be available by the 15th. Here we are sitting on the 20th. I did a little research back and said, okay, if we were told on the 15th, how accurate were? Well, FY16, it was on 8/15 that it was issued. If you look at FY18, it was on the 7th. If you look at FY19, it's on the 15th of August. So they made those dates, and now we're past that date. I'm just wondering what the holdup is here. I mean, we've had a month to do that, and if you go to the weekly report from our administrator, it says the end of the year is finished. Why hasn't it been published?
I'd have to say it's actually a good question, Will. I know when the original memo came out, or email came out that they were going to be getting it to us by a certain date. That was prior to our last meeting, actually, that hadn't occurred. When I did send a reminder, we got it a couple days later. I can certainly look into why we haven't received the official end of the year, and we can table this and review over the accounts when we have the exact numbers. Might not be a bad idea, because some expenses that we may look at now may be quite a bit changed potentially.
That's my thoughts also.
The other issue, we certainly, as far as the long-term projects on the spending in that, unsure as to why some things are listed. Some things are listed from 2018, about 100% spent, and other items haven't been spent at all. So it's certainly something that we also can go through and once we get the official end of the year and actually make a list and see if there's certain ones that we want to ask either Adam or accounting or treasurer, whoever is responsible for that portion, to sit in on one of our next meetings and go over some of that with us on why certain things aren't, or if it's a budgeting issue that is way overspent, if it was potentially due to the COVID situation this spring, to where certain items weren't used and weren't done because certain things were closed. That's a possibility. But at least we could check with the departments to see what the issue was. Because I think the COVID line item, and I could be wrong, was probably put in with most of the departments that potentially would be spending COVID money possibly as a bookkeeping placeholder for accounting to keep track. So when it's time to put in for the state reimbursements or federal reimbursements, there was a way of tracking. Not sure, but that could be one of the reasons why we see that COVID line item. Maybe not for expenses, but more to track budgeting. But I'm unsure of that also.
Well, the things that I'm talking about, Mr. Chairman, is like, I'll give you an example. 2019, Stony Bridge, there's nothing been expended. And then you can end up going to other ones, Dwelly Farm, $62,000. I mean, we've got a lot of money sitting there from 2019. The Grange Hall from 2012 still has $9,000 sitting there. I mean, I can understand some, maybe the 21s, maybe we need to take and end up seeing those at the final as being spent. But when you start looking at these, I mean, even got one for Scout Hall here for $13,000. I mean, way back then, you would think that we would either close those accounts out or whatever, and they haven't spent the money that's been allocated. And I mean, this money is, if we're not going to use it, or the project is done, these accounts should be closed off or something. That's just my thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you, Will, on that. I mean, I know some projects do cross certain timeframes, and they may be able to not quite be spent yet. But if a project's completed and there's just $1,000 sitting in an account, that's certainly monies that, for budgeting purposes, should be turned back over to the town so we can have it recertified as free cash again and bring it in the following year.
Yep.
But
If go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I agree. I mean, the 2020 projects very much could be delayed a little bit with certain things going on. But when you're getting back 3, 4, 5 years, it's kind of getting a little ways back that most projects are either complete or not needed anymore.
There's some I understand, and like for the assessor's office, they end up putting money aside for that, for a revaluation, and they start a number of years before, and they don't necessarily use that past money because of revaluations. The same thing to me also is for the scholarships. I mean, that again is they're waiting for kids to take and end up giving some stuff. I understand those two, but some of these others I do not understand why they're still there and were not spent. That's really my question, and that probably we should be trying to see why they haven't been spent. And you're right. If they're not going to spend it or whatever, then it should be going to free cash.
What we can probably do, if somebody, unless somebody's totally against it, we can ask for an update on those projects and a financial update. We don't necessarily need to know the details of all the projects. And maybe it's something that Adam or Carter can send out to the department heads that do have monies left in those, and see what the project status is. And maybe for our next meeting, we can have that come back to us.
Well, either that, or we could probably wait till the end of the year one and see if there's any other updates. I mean, that's our other course of, as far as that goes. Because I mean, there's certain things that are on here that for the building department that should have been spent. I mean, I believe there's on there a mini split, and that's back a number of years. I mean, for the town hall, what's the holdup there? If there's an issue because we can't get it, even though we've ended up voting for that, then we need to look at that and get that money back in, like you said, so it's available for free cash, and then we can end up putting some more money into stabilization.
I think also one of the things, if you look at our line of intergovernmental, didn't we approve 2 transfers last year? One was for the excavator estimate. That was like around $5,000. And it doesn't show us having anything expended.
Weren't those taken out of the insurance? I believe the documentation was to take them out of the insurance.
I
Tony.
thought we made, we did do a thing out of our emergency fund last year.
Well, as you as the chairman, I would think you had the paperwork.
Well, yeah, I probably do, Will. I'll look. I thought we did do one.
You may be right. I don't know. I'd have to take
Maybe
it in
you're
the,
right. Maybe I'm confusing them with the transfers, interagency transfers, but I thought one of them came after they asked for some of our funds.
I know there was a lot of in the year ones, Tony, but I don't recall any emergency reserve. Carter is very reluctant, or has been very reluctant, to use the emergency reserve. He kind of, I think.
Yeah, I thought that they asked money, and maybe I just have my accounts confused, but I thought they asked money so they could get an appraisal done on the wheeled excavator, so they understood what it was going to be to trade, how much it was going to be worth to trade it in. But maybe that was from a different account. I'll look. I have the paperwork. I just don't have it in front of me.
I have, if we receive that in an email, I probably have it somewhere. If you
Yeah,
want.
I'll look. I'll look through my stuff, and if I find anything, I'll talk about it next week or next meeting.
Okay.
So is anyone against making a motion to table this, going through this until we have the official end of the year, which I believe we should have it fairly quickly. I'll send an email out tomorrow to see if we can get it to us, and then we'll give us time to review it.
I'll make that a motion if you want, Mr. Chairman. Is to take and table the BVA, the last one, and for July until we get the end of the year to see if there was any updates.
Anyone second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's made and seconded. Any other discussion about the year-end BVAs?
Yeah, I was just talking on mute. I didn't even think, I mean, we talked about it, so we're not really tabling anything. We looked at the preliminary document, and then we're waiting for the final, and that could be discussed. But you've already got the motion, so.
Actually, that is true. We have discussed it, quite a bit. So we can just put it on the next agenda that we'll review the final end of the year BVA. Okay, the
And so we're talking about, before we talked about budget. So I went into the accountant's office to pay the Gardner News bill from, what was that, like a month ago that we approved it? And I looked at the bill that they sent me, and it was FY19. Now make a long story short, talking with the Gardner News, they say we don't owe them. We paid that 134 that was old, but they say we don't owe them anything. Now, I don't know if you've been in town hall, Tom, to see if there's anything in the mailbox, but.
I have not within the last week or so. I will check it and make sure.
Okay. Yeah, so according to Gardner News, we don't know anything.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the agenda is old business. Capital planning representative. Carter had, at the last time he had spoken, was looking for us to come up with a capital planning representative prior to Labor Day.
So I'll make a motion to nominate Tom Smith as the capital planning representative. I do
I
that
would
with
second that motion.
I do that with some inside information.
Is anyone?
I just have a question. I thought at the last meeting, Tony, you said that you wouldn't mind doing that.
I said if we didn't have anybody, Will, I would. However, in talking with Mr. Smith, he's expressed an extreme interest in doing it. And so He seemed a little more eager than me. I was going to do it if nobody else wanted to.
If someone certainly wants to do it, I don't have any.
No, I'm good.
Would be
I'm so
interested if
busy
not.
at work.
Been there, done that, guys. Somebody else's
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah, so there's a nomination and a second on the table.
With the
Okay.
question.
Nominating Tom to do the capital planning.
I will do it if that's the wishes. I have no issue with that. Tony,
Yes,
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and I'll be a yes. All right, next thing on the agenda is new member information. I have not received anything from Holly or any interest from anyone. I'd like to bring to you all to see if anyone has talked to someone with interest on this, joining the board. We do still have the 2 vacancies, and at this point we can appoint those vacancies, I believe.
That's correct.
If anyone, we did hear back from the attorney on Miss Susie's application as far as being on another board, and with many paragraphs of around the table talk that really I don't think said much, but it looks like they're saying that we basically at this point she probably should be either on one board or the other, from what I interpreted out of it.
I got the exact same take you did. It's like a whole bunch of legalese that said nothing.
They also basically said
paragraph.
nothing we have says she can or can't, but they went by what their opinion was through other avenues they reached out to, and they kind of went from there. I know we had quite a discussion about it at the other meeting. We've all got our opinions on it. I think it's fantastic that she was looking to try to help out and join multiple boards, and I think it's a difficult thing nowadays. I've talked to a couple members questioning on, because I know sometimes it's with the board of 7, it's hard to get a quorum if you have 2 openings, which is why I definitely appreciate you guys, being here on these meetings. And maybe we potentially look at reducing our board to 5. And I'm not sure opinions on that. I'm not even sure the exact way of going about that as far as the town goes. But I think that it's important that we constantly be able to keep a quorum just to do our best with leading finances going forward in the town.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Absolutely, will. Go ahead.
Knowing that this is going to come up, I did a little research on about 12 communities, about the same size as us, some a little bit bigger. Actually, there is 25 towns between 7,500 to 8,900, which we are one of them. And I went and I chose 7 out of the 12 that I looked at. And I looked at, number 1 is their front page, that they can end up seeing how many members that they had presently, as well as what their bylaw called for. And the vast majority of them were 7 members. And out of those, there was 5 of them that had 6 of the 7. So these communities also had openings. As I talked to you and relayed my concern about, I know that a couple of members are concerned that we have openings. This is not the first time that we've had 1 or more openings on the committee. They've been filled before annual town meeting, believe it or not, in the past by the committee. You also saw that, and I told you that after the annual town meeting, a couple of years ago, and he related it again. The moderator is, I wouldn't say, he doesn't feel comfortable about having to take and end up appointing people other than his 30 days. And you saw the email that I passed on to you that showed you that one of our past members actually asked that question, and he basically deferred to the advisory committee. I mean, this is not unusual to have openings, to go in. If we were now in next April and we still had a couple, I might be concerned. I've looked at talking with some of the people that had been on. They basically relayed their reluctance only to get back on because of how town government has been. Maybe that will change once the administration here coming up is possibly changing. Just to give you a rundown on some of these communities, there were 5 that had 7 members. The 3 had 5 members. Two of the communities had 9 members. One of them had 6 members, and one community had 15 members on their finance. Just to point out, and I saw that, Tom, but I just to take an end up, not your surprise is that being on, I guess, is and I say this, the oldest member, and age-wise also, that I remember when this committee actually had 13 members, and they went from 13 to 9, and then it was a number of years after that they went to 7. The reasoning behind it I don't recall, but as the community's politics had changed, I think that changed, because I remember talking to some of them that were on 13, and they brought up some things that even at that time they were not happy with the select board and the management of the community. That's why it was harder to get people on. Now I would say in some respects it's a little bit better. There's less members that they can end up getting on. We have a better chance of filling 7 than 13, obviously. Going down,
13, nothing ever gets done.
right. Going down to 5 can represent some issues where this committee really has, if we end up doing our job per se as committee members, it does take some time. And you have to take and end up doing a lot of research, etc. And everybody knows that I'm one that does a lot of research. How did I come up with 25 communities that had the 7,000 to 9,000 members? Well, this is all information that all of us are available to us. So we can look at what those communities look like, our size, and take and go look at their websites and see what they do for their advisory committees. And oh, by the way, when I looked at these committees also as to the size, I ended up looking at their bylaw, and I went, wow. I was, excuse me, I was amazed at the amount of communities that I saw that had a bylaw such as our old one, where the advisory committee was more active on the budget as far as review process. I mean, anybody can end up looking at this the same as I did. I mean, I looked at and I later on you'll see that I ended up sending some of the web pages from other communities, from about a dozen of them, to give us an idea for the agenda item later. And I looked at some of these and went, wow, if I look at these communities, some of the things that I have brought up, these communities are still got on their books. I mean, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is what's going to be on the webpage. As an example, AIR and I believe it surely both have end of year transfers or reserve fund transfers documents on there. And by the way, we've been criticized for that by this administration. So, I mean, all in all, to sum up, as far as the number of people or whatever on, I think that for the present, until we see where we are during the year, should be kept where it is. Maybe later in the year, we talk about maybe changing it if we can't fill the vacancies. But this is not unusual to have 7 people in a majority of the communities of all the ones I looked at, the size of our communities. I mean, that's what I'm trying to think and end up just summing up on that. If you want to know those communities, I'll be happy to let you know who they are.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the research, Will. Certainly, the last thing we want to do is, cut our board if we don't need to. I've been a little frustrated because at town meeting, I had 3 different people come up and want to join, but they were on either a small board or a call firefighter or different things. So there was a lot of questions on that. And that's the only reason I even brought up the changing of anything.
Well, when I looked at those other communities, Tom, everyone had the same language we did, excluding town employees and elected and appointed. I mean, it's a standard thing. We're supposed to be a standalone committee and not have the influence or potential of having some conflict, especially during budget season.
I
mean,
understand that, and I like, maybe I'm a little naive in the fact I like to think that if someone has a minor conflict, they can just plain say it and look past it. It's not always the case, and I understand that. And we're kind of, I just want to see us have a full board, so if we do have something important that we need to discuss right away, we don't have to fight to have, everybody there. But it's understandable. Throughout the year, we'll look to, keep recruiting members. And if anybody has anyone that, has any interest that isn't otherwise involved in the town, I certainly hope that we'll reach out and, encourage them to join, because I think the board can make a change with how things have been done in the past, as well as moving forward. So hopefully we can find someone that's, willing to, get on and try to work with that. And I will send an email to Ms. Susie and, express our appreciation with her application and explain the attorney's decision on that. And she may still decide to join the committee, which, we would bring to the next meeting, and that would be her decision on that. Until then, we'll continue, posting on the town website for vacancies as far as the committee, and, move forward in my mind, as far as that goes.
Yep. The latest that we've ever had to fill a position was actually late March and April, in 1 year. That's when we had one particular thing. Most times we had those filled before that time. It takes a couple of months. As I've told other members in the past, it's better for 7 people to be looking than only 1 person to be looking or waiting for somebody to take a stand out. One of the good recruiting tools, and I say this to all the members, if you knew somebody that's critical of town government, period, and town finances, talk to them about getting on. We have gotten a lot of members on this committee in the past that way.
All right, anyone get anything else? So we're going to move on to the next item. New business. Got an email out. I forwarded to you guys on the FY20 annual report. In the past, I know, I believe the chairman hopefully has worked with the secretary on that. Deb, what's been the past as far as how things have gone on the annual report?
So Tony, you used to do that, right? Because I never was involved with that. I mean, I can be.
I'm sorry, I wasn't 100% paying attention.
Annual report. So we have to,
Yeah, I did that. Yeah. Tom, I'll forward you what I did for the last one. Well, I mean, it's actually in the book if you want to look at it, but I can file the document. It's not even due until like January.
Yeah, it's not due until February, but it did came out as an email, and
Okay.
I just wanted to put it on the agenda where we got it, so we basically have an idea as people, as far as starting to work on it. I just
Yeah,
get it done
we
early.
were late.
The sooner you get that, because if you have to go searching for the documentation, this is one of the things I've done in the past is had to take it up. You save the documentation either as chairman. I've done it as chairman, and I know I might have mentioned it to Tony about saving any reserve or any of the sheets that we ended up accepting monies, or we ended up saying we're going to spend some monies and that we have to give to the accountant, to keep that in a folder, so that at the end of the year you have to take and do the accounting for the monies and show how much we've spent and how much is left in each of our accounts.
Yeah, so Tom, I'll get with you on this because really the report is for FY20.
Yes.
So, other than the school stuff, we didn't really expend a lot of money or anything. So I'll find everything and get with you, and because I had to kind of recreate what we did for FY19 when Jeff was the chairman. It's kind of weird because you're kind of a year behind.
Yeah, no,
where you're
I'm
actually
familiar
at.
with writing the annual reports. I did it as chief here and still do it in Winchendon. I just wanted to make sure if anyone else usually inputs, as I'm doing, I'm certainly just wanted to let you all know that I'll probably be picking all your brains on it. I know you've all had time on this board more than me, and I have no issue asking any of you for help on it. So as far as the input goes. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that if you get a weird email from me asking odd questions for an annual report from a year ago, just bear with me, and
Okay.
it will probably come. So
Tom, a lot of the annual report is for any type of monies that we spent during the year, whether it be for emergency reserve or for training, etc. If you keep the documentation, a copy of it, along with giving it to the accountant into a folder, it really helps move that along a lot quicker. So you have all that information, and it's easy to plug into an Excel sheet. And I'm sure you've done it for your department over in Winchendon.
yes, I definitely agree, and I'm also the feeling that I like to point out in an annual report what the board's done, because we don't just transfer money and not meet ever again and talk about anything else. So I think it's important that community-wise, they know that they're getting the most out of the board, so that as members look to join, they can kind of understand that the board does more than just, okay, we approved 3 transfers and then we sit around for the rest of the year. So I think it's good to make sure that they know what we're doing. And I think financially we talk about a lot, and hopefully we talk about even more coming up.
Just as a note of caution, and this happened in 2016. We had 75 plus end of year transfers. When we end up writing that up and giving it to the powers to be, to go into the annual report, it was cut. All that information was cut, and that was for all of the members, especially myself, because I ended up drawing all that out and keeping all that paperwork for that year. I was highly disappointed. That's a record of what we do as a committee, and that nobody should be ending up editing any report from any committee or any board. And if you saw the letter that you received, it says that they're going to edit. That's not necessarily what we should be doing. Even if the report even if the annual report is got to be 5 or 10 pages longer, unedited, because of somebody's report, then that's how it should be, because that's a record of what's that community did and all the boards and committees. And I find it highly objection as far as having somebody in the administration tell us they're going to edit our report. Now, if it was English or whatever, I can understand that. If it's spacing, I can understand that. But the actual content is something that should not be edited. And
I
by the
agree
way,
And that's something we'll look at going forward. And
Yeah.
if a report's edited, we can certainly bring that up as
Well-
far as town floor wise. And it's something that it shouldn't be, and maybe it's something that needs to eventually come before the Board of Selectmen if that's how it goes about. I can see reports, I can see, spacing to fit in the report. But encourage you or give a limit to your departments on the size you make it.
Yep.
We can work on that going forward. We got till February, but
yeah, just to let you know,
guys know that we'd be picking at certain things from here and there.
just to let you know, that was elevated. Paul Grubb actually had a PowerPoint presentation, and that was one of the things on the PowerPoint that he pointed out, that our annual report should not have been edited, and that was presented to the selectmen. I mean, I'd be happy to take and provide that to every one of you. I still have that.
I think we believe you, Will, on that. I don't think you need to send it all out to us. But I think that we need to hopefully move past that and work with the powers to be down at town hall and going forward with the annual report, and maybe explain to them that how we feel prior to it being submitted to them. And I found out it's a lot easier to work with them, but still show what we're doing in a different format if we have to. So I think that we'll keep plugging forward on that. I just wanted to make sure you all knew we might be picking your brain on this topic moving forward between now and February.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help.
I appreciate that.
Me too.
All right, next item on the agenda, discuss the webpage and posting certain items. It was pointed out to me we needed to work on things that are posted as far as minutes and, the webpage and that. I have worked and spoken with Deb on doing that, and we'll be working that out going forward. I know that she's spoken to Lee as far as for some past stuff. I'm sure that, all of you, Will's been more than helpful with, forwarding me some stuff and looking at, different towns' possible web pages on that. The web page is pretty easy to navigate once you're in and able to work with arranging things. I think that going forward, we can slowly bring the past up to date. Will's been sending me some information on, past minutes, and we'll work on, posting those as PDF. And I talked with Deb as far as the minutes posting now and, receiving them and approving them without it. If we don't have changes, it's very easy. I just need to convert the Word to PDF and it posts right onto the webpage. We can't always change how things are done, but we can move forward with it. I think that it's, sometimes there's a lot going on and certain things get done or don't get done. And I really don't looking back on what's been there. Well, we need to just move forward and go forward from here as far as what's there and do our best with putting things on. Opinions on that? I just want, throw that out there and let people know that we are working on that, and it will be, going forward.
If I can, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Will.
as far as the minutes being on our webpage, I'm going to throw something out because all the ones that I sent over to everybody as an item to take a look at, quite a few of them had their minutes and their agendas on the page. Well, we have a very unique situation in this community. On the actual master page for the town, you can go in and go into town government, our town government, and look at ours as well as everybody else's agenda and their minutes. to take and put it on ours would be, to me, maybe redundant, and we have to put it on our town government because that's the town clerk's window as to, and she keeps the records to all the meeting minutes, and she ends up having to have that there, and that's why she ended up putting it up. Is if we ended up putting it on there, which we are required to do, to me, it might be redundant to end up putting it on our web page. Putting it on our web page, though, is a link to go to our town government for minutes, to me, makes sense versus putting all that on our web page. Like I said, I looked at all those other communities. The one thing that I did see is up on the upper left hand, they had a lot of documentation as far as end of year reserve, the transfers, etc. Other documentation that they ended up putting up. We should put our policies up there, for example. I think I talked to you about that. But to take and put it on the web page and our town government, we can miss one of those if it's has to going into the future. But if everybody knows that it has to be on our town government, it'll always be there. So it's not something that we have to put on our webpage. That's my feelings. I mean, I don't know about anybody else.
Certainly having a link to, my town government certainly will work. Sometimes a lot of web systems will, if we post it to my town government under the advisory board, it will also automatically post on the web page for the advisory committee. So we'll see how that works. I'm not going to post it 36 different places. That's kind of redundant and ridiculous. But we will make sure that it's posted appropriately. And if it's not on our page, we'll certainly put a link forward to go there. Just moving forward with a little bit of the technology and making sure we post things in the right places. I know enough about technology to screw things up. So I try to avoid, but I will do that. And I've talked to, the town clerk, and Deb and I have talked about, posting things. And I think with a collaborative effort, we'll get things where we need to be and moving forward, and, taking the information that, Will, you've given me in the past, as far as the back stuff, we'll kind of work on both ends and get it to meet in the middle.
Yeah, I would say that we need to end up getting some of our policies up there. We've taken hits from the selectmen as well as the administrator that they didn't see our policy for end of the year reserve or whatever, though it was sent out multiple times to all the department heads as well as the administrator. He received it at least 3 times that I am aware of. I know Adam had actually contacted me the last time for end of year reserve documentation of the policy, and I did send that to him. But I mean, if it was on our page, that should actually tell them that it's here, it's on our page. It's there for you to take and end up reading it along with your submission.
No, I agree. We'll get together and make sure we get all that. I've talked to Tony, and, Tony and I are going to make sure we've got all our, notebooks and binders together that we need to scan and post. And, we're going to work together as a board on that. And I'm sure that town hall will work together with us on that. And I'm sure when the town's audited yearly, they'll give us pointers on what they think should be done. And I think I'm actually familiar with the auditor that comes in, and he's more than willing to work with you, and we'll see how that goes. And hopefully it'll give us some input on what needs to be improved and what we're doing more than we need to in certain areas. So we'll work on that. And I think that's just important that we'll keep going forward on that. All right. The next item that I have on the agenda is state funding for FY21. state has come out with some emails on funding. Has looked like they're going to level fund at the FY20 level plus a normal multiplier, which looking at last year's numbers compared to this year's numbers, unrestricted government, general government aid should be up roughly a little over $41,000 here in town. And looking at the school district's numbers, there should be up roughly $52,000. These numbers are concurrent on them voting correctly or voting in favor of this, but this is what they've put forward to continue doing almost as a commitment letter to the communities to ensure that moving forward in FY21 is understood that that's the direction they're headed. Not quite sure in some ways where they're going to get the monies. That's probably not my place to worry about, so I won't. But I think that's a fantastic thing with a lot of communities looking at large reductions and now not having them, hopefully. So I think the official numbers they said will be out sometime in late October or early November, but this was what they sent out commitment letter wise overall. So I think that's good news. I don't think we really need to spend too much time going over it with not having the official numbers yet, but I just think it was important to move forward with those numbers going forward. So.
Yeah, we won't know until the October, November timeframe if we're in trouble.
I think
or
so,
not.
unless they decide to put something forward sooner. But just from what I've read in different places, I'm guessing that that's going to be the timeline they're looking at as far as official numbers. They've sent out commitments. I don't think they're going to change from the commitment letters. They'd look kind of foolish. So hopefully they don't, but never know.
Well, we at least have a state budget until the end of October.
Pretty much so, yes. That's pretty much all we have until then. So next thing on, anyone else on the state funding for FY21? All right, the next thing on the agenda is to discuss the weekly reports. Weekly we get I believe it's weekly or bi-weekly. We get a report from Town Hall and Town Administrator's report. And it goes over things going on in the town, things on in each department. Wanted to know what your opinions were on us starting to review these reports for the financial things that actually are financial. We don't need to be reviewing things that are language, things departments have done. But if there's a large financial issue or a large financial impact, I think it's important that we might review or go over them. Don't want to waste people's time if you don't think we should be.
No, I think it's a good idea.
I do think it's something that I want to see what you guys thought. It's a nice 4-page document that actually is something I actually like that comes out of Town Hall. And I think it's important that we possibly review financial impacts, being the financial board for the community. So just looking for input from the rest of the board.
I think it's a good idea. And Will kind of rightfully pointed out earlier that the one from the 13th from the accountant's office said, end of year's done. So why don't we have the report? But yeah, I think that does kind of highlight some things that are happening or have happened in the past or are going to happen. And I think if we focus on the financial things, I think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, because on that report, if you go back, there's been a number of items that have been on that report that will eventually see some type of impact to our community, whether it be to directly to the town as far as revenue coming in, or impact and I can think of one particular one of getting money from CPC to take and go ahead with a project. We might end up having to take and end up seeing that warrant article at some time in the future.
Okay, so if nobody has an issue with it, I'll start automatically putting it on the agenda just to review the 2 weeks report that we, for financial reasons, that we've had since our last meeting.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Okay. All right, the next thing I have on the agenda is member comments, concerns, open questions about things going on.
Guess we kind of should address the elephant in the room with Carter leaving. That was kind of a surprise.
Okay.
I haven't heard any timing or anything and how they plan to transition. I mean, I know it's just, I think it was just really announced officially yesterday. So maybe they,
Is at this point, what he's doing is he's working his hours here that are committed via his contract, and no more, as far as that goes. Just those hours. I've been yet to be. I haven't spoken to him yet. This is just through a few different channels, talking to people. That's what they've been told. I think that moving forward, he'll do a fine job in Grafton, and that will move forward with Adam. At this point, anything that I do, make sure that I send to town hall will go to both Carter and Adam, because I think it's important that Adam's included in these any decisions we start making or things that we have questions on, because moving forward in the community, he's going to be the person that needs to lead the town. So
yeah. So I don't know when he starts in Grafton. I hope that there's not an overlap where he's working for both towns.
I think there is gonna, from what I've read in a few different places and spoken to a few people, I believe there's gonna be an overlap. It looks like there'll be an overlap almost from now until October.
I mean, I don't think it's a conflict of interest because there's not.
No, and I don't think I think he'll do the same job he's always done. I think that it will suddenly give Adam more credence that he's gonna be the person moving forward, which is good.
Well, I guess.
More skin in the game, and I think he'll earn that. He's earned that.
Well, let me ask this question, and I have no idea. I'm just wondering, is it legal for one person to be the town manager of two separate towns? Or town administrator?
If I can weigh in on that, Tony,
Sure.
I believe if you look at his contract, and I'm not a lawyer, there's a section in there which, to me, excludes him from working for another community.
Well, that
But I
would be
mean,
for the Board of Selectmen to discuss.
that's not something that we can end up controlling. That's up to the selectmen, and I would think that the selectmen would address that. The selectmen also
Yeah.
are going to have to take and address his resignation, if that's the case. If he starts earlier, they've got to receive that, and they've got to take and end up working with Adam for a contract to take him on board.
Well, right. So my concern for the town of Templeton would be, and not that, and I know I'm kind of in the minority, but I think Carter has done a good job. And he's done a pretty good job teaching Adam. But what happens when there's a conflict where both towns need him? Okay. I feel that should never arise. So maybe they should move to make Adam the town administrator with the full rights sooner than later, because we know that transition's happening. I mean, again, it's up to the Board of Selectmen, but and I don't think Carter would do anything to, hurt the town of Templeton or anything like that. It's just that if there's a conflict in priorities, how does he resolve that?
That's why I brought up the thing about the contract, the wording. If I read it correctly, at least it sounded to me that he couldn't be working for somebody else at the same time he's working for us. Just to stop that type of thing from happening.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't feel like Carter would ever do anything to.
It's not a case of whether he would do something. It's a case of working for two communities at the same time, and the contract, to me, forbids that.
I haven't looked at his contract, so I really can't feed in on this. But I do think that the Board of Selectmen will address how they need to move forward. I think this is a sudden thing with the board and with Carter's announcement, and being in the paper. I think that the real oddity will be, I don't think he's going to move forward with working on both too long, because the end of the line, it does affect what you can make after retirement. And he only can do so much. So I think he's going to make sure he's doing where it's going to go forward. And, you know, and he's a smart guy when it comes to that. He's not going to work for two communities, double dip, so to speak, and make more than he can. So he's going to make it pretty much exact. And I think he'll make sure that he's not doing both any longer than he can or he needs to. So I think that's something that the Board of Selectmen will address that, I feel, and move forward with it, how his contract reads and what Adam can do. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, they both get everything at this point, because Adam's going to be the person moving forward, and he's earned that.
Well, not my words, but Carter's words is that he had donates time to Templeton. Maybe that's
Does.
maybe that's the method he's going to end up using. I don't know.
Yeah, he works more hours than what is allotted to him. He doesn't charge for every hour he
Well, I think
Yeah,
any town
that he
manager
works.
does, town administrator does. I think that any
yeah.
department head that's worth what they're doing does. So I think at the end of the day, most of your town employees, and, you know, from the top to the bottom, they always do a little bit more than what they need to, hopefully.
You're right. Hopefully, because as a a salaried individual, I always did more, and I would expect that for anybody that's got a contract or considered as salaried employees per the budget, that they would end up not necessarily only working X amount of hours and not getting that little extra in when it needs to be.
I agree. Anybody have anything else that they want to go into? One item I had was to speak about Carter, so we've addressed that. Amy, you have anything else? Tony?
Nope.
Will?
Yeah, I have one that I'm concerned about, and I think we should, and it may or may not come up. Is we all know that for the school, we may end up going to a district-wide meeting here, depending on what Phillipston does at their special town meeting. They, as we all know, that they voted for less money than what was asked for by the school. I've read a number of things as to where they're positioning themselves. The finance committee at the last meeting position that they wanted, they can end up giving the school what they wanted, and the selectmen chose to end up leaving it open-ended for the community. Well, the community the last time around was the one that cut the budget even more so, even below the minimum, and there was discussion about below the minimum. And oh, by the way, you can pay more than underneath the minimum, as somebody pointed out. They did their research. So we have that, and that may come up as to what we end up at some point. If we have to go to a district meeting, this committee will have to take and end up, and they do ask us going into the district meeting, what our position is for the budgets. So, I mean, we should at least be aware of that. Keep that, you know, in our headlights, so to speak, by all members, so that when we get to that particular point, we're ready to discuss it and make our recommendation for the district meeting if it's asked.
I agree with that, Will. You know, moving forward, hopefully, I understand, you know, Phillipston said they don't want to lose their school, and that's understandable, and we've got that, but the school's lost at this point. And moving forward, Dr. Casavan's done a lot of, you know, hard work on, and the whole administration has, on putting a budget forward to us. I know Phillipston has a non-binding referendum question on leaving the district. Whether they would like to join somewhere else, whether they want to be their own, or whether they really don't have an idea. The building's been closed. It would need a lot of updates, I believe, to bring everything up to code in that building. Once a building is closed, and we found that out years ago with East Templeton Elementary. Once it's closed as a school, before you reopen it as a school, needs to be brought up to full code. And there's a lot of full code changes in a lot of these old buildings.
Yeah.
Very costly. And I don't think it's something that, any community really wants to look at. So hopefully things settle down on that aspect and they go to town meeting and things go well for the schools aspect.
So from what I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So from what I heard, it's like $2.5 million to update their school, which probably means more like 4. But if they want to keep the school open this year for an elementary school, they just have to pony up their assessed amount, not the whatever they had minus the million, and they need to add $1 million, and they can keep the school open. It's not it shouldn't be on the town of Templeton taxpayers' wallets to keep a school in Phillipston open. Just shouldn't.
Agree with that. That they've got to look at their whether they want to end up having that school, such as Warwick and Petersham, which actually has a separate school board, even though they're part of the district, and the superintendent still looks over that per se. I mean, they could go that way, but it's really up to them. And you're right. It's going to cost them $2 to $4 million possibly that they can end up addressing that, and that's a cost to them that they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, they can do whatever they want to do. It's just that my position is I'm just against Templeton taxpayer monies to keep a school in Phillipston open. I'm not trying to be mean or callous or anything like that, but I want my tax money to go to the town of Templeton.
Well, and I think that moving forward, I think the current school administration will work on doing what's best for both towns. Even though they're not keeping that school open, they're giving the best education for the students coming from Phillipston to the Templeton school. And I think our job as a board is to make sure that's going forward correctly with, budgeting town-wise. And what another community does, that's their issue and that's their prerogative. But at the end of the day, we're making sure that we do what's correct for Templeton. I don't think any of us would slight the taxpayers of Phillipston, but our responsibilities are to Templeton at this point.
The other issue that I had, Tom, was that the revenues for this coming year, as everybody saw the revenues, I'm not sure everybody did, but the revenue for the last quarter, as far as sales tax, was down approximately $4,000, $4,000 to $5,000. And that's all because of the virus. I'm concerned about going forward this next year, and that's something that the town's going to have to watch, and we're going to have that as a possible financial impact. It's a concern that I have going forward to this next budget year, that the revenues do not make the projections that were presented to us. And I mean, that's probably going to come true because everybody's having difficulties per se. And you also see some of the land taking, they're having auctions per se for a number of parcels. And I don't know, with some of these people being out of work, whether that's going to affect the foreclosures in this community, which again affects the revenue coming in. I don't want to see the town foreclose on a family because of what's this virus has brought on, and the town takes their home. That's to me that is absolutely wrong. Uh,
I agree with that, Will. I agree with you completely. My only
It's
issue
against, they can't do that. It's against the law.
they can't, and they can't at this time. It's wrong, and it's not lawful at this point with all the things going on. But I also, and I may be in the minority when it comes to this. I think it's very important that when people say they can't go find work at this point to support their family, I can't count the businesses that are looking for employees. And I know it's a difficult time. I know there's students being homeschooled, there's being people, but a lot of this stuff's choices. And there's a lot of jobs out there. I don't per se, I mean, I've seen restaurants closing, 3 days a week because they can't find somebody to cook or a hostess or a waiter or waitress. And this may not be the jobs that a lot of people are used to, but it may be the jobs that they need to do to keep their families in their homes. And I think that's important too. It's easy to say that we don't want to see foreclosures on things, but I also don't want to see foreclosures on things and 5 adults sitting in the house that aren't working because they don't want to go to work. So there is a very fine line when it comes to what can be done versus what is being done.
Unfortunately, we're in a situation here where in some instances that you've seen some restaurant owners actually say this in Boston, where the employees are getting more money on unemployment than they would end up getting. And, and that's driving a lot of the people not to go back to work, unfortunately. I mean, this is not something that we can control, but it will eventually have a financial impact to towns, governments, etc. at some particular point, I think.
I agree, and we're just going to have to monitor that going forward. All right. I think where was I? That was Will. Deb, do you have anything that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think you guys covered quite a bit, but thank you for asking.
All right. Anyone else? Or
I just want to go back to the school thing just for a second.
sure, go ahead, Amy.
I just want to say for the record, it's super important that everybody should remember that Phillipston is making a choice for the town of Phillipston, just like we as a committee make choices for the town of Templeton, and we discuss the town of Templeton, where the school committee makes choices for the Narragansett Regional School District, which our towns are both part of. And I think emotions get high and people forget that this is not Templeton making a decision for Phillipston to deal with. It's not like that. The school committee makes those decisions for the district, and each town receives their bill. Templeton has received their bill in the past and not liked it. They've received what's going to happen and they don't like it, just as Phillipston is in that position this year. So I just want to say, like, officially, it's really important that we as a governing body or a consulting body stay clear that this is social commentary and that's all fine, but we're only concerned with the town of Templeton because that's our arena. We can't make suggestions to the district unless we're doing it as private citizens. We can't do anything to control the school committee or anything like that unless we're acting as private residents. And we do that in our own fashion, just like anyone would, no matter what town they're affiliated with. I've lived in this town my entire life, and there's always been this sort of ebb and flow of emotion around the school. And Phillipston needs to do what's right for Phillipston, just like every year Templeton tries really hard to do what's right for Templeton. So it doesn't matter where I stand because this is a Templeton question, and Templeton has agreed to their share of the budget for this year. So while we may be called to a district meeting to come together again to revisit those numbers, we did our part this year. And yes, in the past we've argued, we've wanted things differently, but hopefully it can be, everyone can agree at that district meeting if it comes down to that, simply because this isn't going to go away. The school committee's told us, the district has told us this isn't going to go away even at the end of this fiscal year 21. So I just wanted to say, for the record, this is a district decision, not a Templeton decision and not solely a Phillipston decision. It's a district decision to close the Phillipston school.
Amy, I totally agree with you. The reason I brought it up was that we're going to be asked to take in and represent Templeton's decision as to recommendation on the budget. And and I looked at it just from our perspective and not theirs. But I did mention the impact that it was going to have of having a district meeting. It's their issue, but we have to look out for and make our recommendation for Templeton and not necessarily for the district.
I agree. And I heard you. I just wanted to add that little bit. I just want, like, we know each other and we speak to each other, but I think it's important because this is on YouTube and it's recorded, that anybody watching it back understand that's a little bit of the backstory. Like, we are fully aware as a committee, these are district decisions, not our town making a decision that impacts Phillipston. The district made that decision. Templeton, the town of Templeton didn't make that decision.
We can only take and end up making a recommendation on the monies that we have as to whether we agree with it or not agree, our assessment for Templeton. That's it. Bottom line.
Very good. Anyone have anything else, or going once, going twice? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Tony?
Yep.
Aye.
Deb?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Very good. Thank you very much, everyone. And thanks for helping out and attending.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
In a couple weeks.